Thank you for the lovely introduction. My name is Jennifer Nitsky, and I work for the collaborative firm Studio HIP. We are a woman-owned firm in New York City that partners with landscape architects and designers, environmental educators, artists, and certified arborists in the pursuit of creative placemaking to promote healthier communities through environmental education and sustainable design. Community outreach and collaboration is at the core of our work. We strongly believe that communities should be active participants in the design of their neighborhoods. We listen to their needs and we advocate for their voices to be heard. For the majority of my career, I have worked as a consultant to the Trust for Public Land on their New York City Playgrounds Program, which transforms asphalt schoolyards into vibrant green community playgrounds in primarily underserved neighborhoods. It gives me great pleasure to share this program with you, especially one aspect of the process that is truly rewarding, working directly with students who literally put on the hats of a landscape architect during the program. This program serves as a great case study for raising awareness of our profession and hopefully inspiring future landscape architects. In this presentation, I will also discuss the need to increase diversity in our profession and the importance of raising awareness at an earlier age. We will look at the status of the profession from ASLA demographics and look at tools for building awareness, as well as additional ways to engage with students. Last year, the American Society of Landscape Architects, ASLA, conducted some research of their member base. There were a total of 15,231 members, which comprise of 10,225 full members, 677 associate level, or those with 1 to 4 years after graduating, 434 affiliate members, and 3,468 student members. On the other side, you see the 2019 Bureau of Labor Statistic data, which shows 20,280 landscape architects across the United States. Looking at a map view breakdown of members by state, we see that the highest concentration of landscape architects are along the east and west coasts and the southern and central regions. This seems somewhat consistent with states where some of the largest cities are located. The top 5 states where landscape architects are employed currently are, not surprisingly, California, Florida, New York, Texas, and Colorado. In general, from the survey, we have almost a complete picture on ASLA member demographics by gender. Notable in this side-by-side comparison of the different segments is the fact that a majority of students of landscape architecture are female, with about 62%. This drops to 59% for associates, which are graduates within 1 to 4 years after receiving their diploma. Female practitioners drop further in the full membership category to 35%. And finally, there are only 22 women fellows. This is the highest honor that a landscape architect can receive from their professional society. I hope we change that. This is a snapshot of demographic data in the United States from 2019. We can see that non-Hispanic whites represent the largest group at just over 63%. This is followed by Hispanics and Latina at 15.3%, and Black or African Americans at 13.4%. Back to the ASLA demographic data, 73% of student members, including international students, self-identified their race in the survey. 48% identified as Caucasian, which is less than the US Census. Next largest group is Asian Pacific Islander at 31.58%, followed by Hispanic, Latino, and African American. This picture may reflect the strong Asian foreign student body, which also shows up in the annual student award winners. Now, if we go to the associate level, 72% of associate members self-identified in the race. They self-identified their race. The drop in Asian Pacific Islander category is likely due to students returning to their homeland for work or family or visa reasons. Now, if we compare these numbers to the overall US population, there is a sharp discrepancy of African American Black category. Only 3.19% of students identify as African American or Black, while the US population is 13.4%. Students identifying as Hispanic, Latino, Latina is also lower at 11%, compared to 15.3% of the US population. Similarly, at the associate levels, representation of African American Black emerging professionals remains around 3%, and representation of Hispanic, Latino, Latina emerging professionals drops to 8.56%. This data not only tells us that we need to increase numbers of Black and Hispanic students to better represent the US demographics, but we also need to retain them as they become emerging professionals. Continuing to glimpse at full members, it is notable that the majority is Caucasian, followed by Asian Pacific Islander, Hispanic, and African American with only 1%. Comparing these more established professionals to the US population reveals that the number of African American, Black, and Hispanic, Latino, Latina professionals are far from representing the general US population. Hopefully, as time goes on and students and emerging professionals become full members, these numbers will increase, but based on the current student population demographics, our professionals still far from the US population numbers. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I have conducted interviews with local landscape architecture students at City College in New York as part of our annual Parking Day activities. It's always interesting to hear other people's stories of what brought them to landscape architecture. Several had mentioned that they were driven by activities they did growing up, but many said they didn't even know that landscape architecture was something they could go to school for, or that landscape architects were responsible for shaping their environments. So how do we create a profession that more reflects society? Well, our goal, of course, is to have the field of landscape architecture more closely represent communities that they serve. This has been a long-standing goal of ASLA. In fact, in the late 1960s, they identified New York City as being an ideal location for landscape architecture education, since it is the most diverse location in the US. Around that time, a summit was held by ASLA and a committee was formed with key members, including Paul Freeberg, who said that education had to be financially accessible in order to attract urban students of diverse backgrounds. And we need to raise awareness in high schools so the students knew what landscape architecture even was. In 1970, he founded the program in urban landscape architecture at the City College of New York. This program, while now a thriving master's program, continues to attract a diversity of students. But we need to attract students at an earlier age to increase awareness of our profession and foster stronger interest. It is not enough that just to be working on projects in underserved and diverse communities. We must also engage with these communities, not only to build a stronger sense of ownership and stewardship, but also awareness of landscape architecture. There has been some great momentum, especially with identifying landscape architecture as STEM education, and some fantastic programs developed, like the Florida-based Future Landscape Architects of America program, the Gowanus Canal Conservancy's Blue School Design Challenge, and the Urban Ecology program here in New York, just to name a few. I would also like to recognize the recently established National Association of Minority Landscape Architects, focused on increasing minority representation at all levels of landscape architecture practice and academia. Links to these organizations are included at the end of this presentation. I hope that this momentum continues to build. Many studies on childhood education state several benefits to hands-on learning. Some of those benefits are giving students the ability to learn by doing, which requires using both sides of the brain. This increases attention. It involves problem solving and critical thinking. It gives them a sense of pride by creating tangible things. And also that it's proven to increase retention of information. A stronger sense of awareness can be the result of hands-on activities. So why not use this as the main tool for building awareness of our profession? I am so excited to talk to you about this case study with the New York City Playgrounds Program by the Trust for Public Land. This one-off model started in New York City over 20 years ago with the goal of providing quality parks within a 10-minute walk of all New York City residents. With limited space in the dense urban environment, schoolyards, which are traditionally mostly paved, became the ideal location because they were public land and they were located in every neighborhood. As community engagement has long been the best tool for creating neighborhood parks, this was used to generate the designs. The unique aspect is that for the New York City Playground Program, a 6 to 10 week participatory design program directly with the students and community members at each school is implemented, and it's the main focus of the process. Through collaborations between the Trust for Public Land, the School Construction Authority, Department of Environmental Protection, and other partners, this program has transformed over 210 schoolyards into green community playgrounds across the 5 boroughs. This program reaches all neighborhoods in all 5 boroughs and has a wide socio-economic diversity of students. You can see this map, while the text is probably too small to read, just looking at the sheer number of dots on the map. And New York City is, while it's great in population, is relatively small in area. So the number of schools that have been reached is pretty impressive. So for the infographic and data nerds out there, here's some fun facts. New York City playgrounds by the numbers. Since 1996, the New York City Playgrounds Program by the Trust for Public Land has placed 4 million plus, over 4 million New Yorkers within a 10-minute walk of a playground. They have planted over 4,000 trees, I'm guessing probably even more recently, and captured 19 million gallons of stormwater annually. Most importantly, this process has involved over 7,000 students in the design process. So a little bit about the process. All good designs includes a site analysis, right? As participatory design begins, students take a deep look at their schoolyard and the surrounding neighborhood. They measure the site with measuring wheels. They locate existing drains. They look at areas of sun and shade and also how the ground slopes. This analysis is all recorded collectively on 10 scale aerial maps. The concept of scale is introduced, which is not an easy thing to grasp at the elementary school level. And base maps are provided for them at a 1 to 10, 1 inch equals 10 foot scale for future work on all the schematic designs with templates, which are also to scale. Students get to take a field trip to a completed playground to see the results of a completed project, as well as to play in order to get ideas for what they want to put in their designs. This is usually the first time that they realize the immense impact of what they are about to work on. One of the favorite components of the program is the sewer in a suitcase, which illustrates how New York City's combined sewer overflows And the students are introduced to green infrastructure initiatives such as rain gardens, trees, pervious pavements, and synthetic turf fields that can help improve New York's waterways. So the way this works is it's a three-dimensional model of a typical city block with tall buildings, and you've got the street, and there's a drain in the middle of the pavement. So we sprinkle glitter on top of the buildings, on top of the pavement, and then we pour water on top to emulate the rain falling. And the glitter represents trash and poop and other nasty things. So when the water hits it, it collects all of the glitter and it flows through the drain, through the pipe, and into the blue base, which represents the rivers. Then we take a piece of synthetic turf and we do the same thing. We put that over the drain, sprinkle the glitter on top, pour the water on top, and then you see that the water comes through that turf, but it's slowed down and very little glitter comes through the end of the pipes. So it's really fun way to introduce stormwater management. Students also assess the current uses of the schoolyard and where they happen and discuss ideas for what elements they want to see incorporated into their new playground. This is always a fun activity because they all work together, they collaborate, make decisions together, thinking about how they use the space already and how they see other people using the space. Students produce playground theme ideas as well. They vote on a top choice and present their concept ideas to the rest of the class. And you can see a lot of the students come up with design ideas based on things that they're studying at the time in school, based on current events. You see a lot of nature, animals, stars and space. And one of my favorites is one school in the Bronx said that, you know, the Bronx is known for being the center of hip hop. So they want to do a hip hop theme, and they came up with some really fun, creative designs for their school theme. Using two-scale templates and base maps, teams of students collaborate to decide what elements to include in the design, as well as where to place them. They keep in mind site analysis and the placement of trees for shade, use zones and circulation, and equity of activity for all park users. They also have a survey of the different elements to include in their school design that the entire school votes on. So they have like a top 10 list of items to include in the school design. Our team at Studio HIP creates formalized schematic plans based on the student design ideas, along with 3D views and illustrations. The students take turns presenting different aspects of their playground design. This not only helps to develop their public speaking skills, but it also empowers them to talk about the designs that they created. The plans are then presented to the principals and the community to get final input. Once a final scheme is determined, landscape architects at Studio HIP take the plans, take the ideas, and develop construction documents based on their designs. The plans are then reviewed by city agencies and then constructed, usually within a year. Here is a great example of before and after the design. You can see the asphalt before, nothing but asphalt, and it turns into a green, lush, vibrant, colorful, fun design afterward. Let me do this one more time. There you go. There's the asphalt. Nothing else. Very blah. No trees. And the final product. With limited space in New York City schoolyards, and the need to include many elements and activities in each design, creative solutions for plant life and green infrastructure are a necessity. We incorporate sedum green roofs on gazebos and storage units, raised garden beds, and outdoor classrooms and garden areas. When large shade trees aren't possible, we select more fastigiate or understory trees. We and the students also understand the need to have as many trees as possible for the environment. This is a really great way for the students to learn about the benefits of the green elements that they've designed. Artwork that students design are incorporated into the color seal in each playground to give them a unique identity. We take the student sketches and trace them in AutoCAD and to create the details for construction documents. We also collaborate very closely with the contractors to ensure that the color seal art is just as the students designed it. You can see all of the fun, creative ways that the students have incorporated their own theme ideas into the asphalt of each schoolyard. And usually we put a welcome sign that says designed by the students, so they feel even more pride when they walk into their schoolyard every day. Involving the students in planting day gives them an opportunity to be part of the implementation of their playground, and it builds stewardship. This activity not only develops a deeper relationship with their environment, but also they gain a strong sense of ownership of their playground. So they will likely help to keep it clean and thriving. Here's a couple of testimonials that are just amazing. This one from the one of the school directors at a school in Queens. Every year, we have a gardening club. Students who usually live in cramped apartments get the opportunity to work outdoors with their hands, planting, weeding, pruning, and mulching. They get to learn about plant life, and they love working outdoors with their hands. Another one, this time from a student, a fifth grader at PS 213 in Brooklyn. This schoolyard demonstrates the value of student voices. Watching our ideas take shape right outside the windows of our classroom has given us a huge sense of pride. Opening day is always exciting for both the students and the school staff and us as well, but it's also for the community. Seeing the joy and amazement on student designers' faces as they get to use the playground for the first time is incredibly rewarding. In many cases, this is the first time that they realize they designed this. This is their playground. The community pride developed through the implementation of student designs is also truly amazing. And this project is something students will remember for the rest of their lives. One of the greatest benefits of this process is inspiring future landscape architects and stewards. I'm going to play a video for you. This was recorded in 2016, but it still really captures the program perfectly.
Since 1996, the Trust for Public Land has built 190 playgrounds across the 5 boroughs of New York City. So many New Yorkers don't have backyards, and I believe that our Playgrounds program really helps millions of New Yorkers get in touch with nature. TPL's mission is to have everyone live within a 10-minute walk of a park. My name is Mary Alice Lee, and I'm the director of the New York City Playgrounds Program at the Trust for Public Land.
TPL brings an element that is missing in today's classroom, that almost concrete type of education, and that leadership that's fostered for it is irreplaceable.
PS 15 in the East Village is one of the schools that the Trust for Public Land has worked to transform from an asphalt lot into a safe place to play.
It looked like a bunch of concrete, plain, old, like it was just like a yard. There was no grass. It was just nothing.
The users of the parks are the designers of the parks.
We got to design the art on the floor.
We didn't really have basketball courts or like a big jungle gym to play on.
So we engaged the school and community in a 3-month participatory design process that includes amenities such as artificial turf fields, running tracks, play equipment, outdoor classrooms, gardens, and lots of trees. Children have the experience, many for the first time in their lives, to affect change in their communities.
The students were help voting to see what we should and shouldn't put in the park.
And have the children brainstorm and create and run these ideas and give them that responsibility, that role.
It's essential to introduce young people to the field of landscape architecture. We teach them about sustainable practices, stormwater management.
This is all the drainage area where all the water comes down into the schoolyard, and the plants help absorb that extra moisture.
Through our partnership with DEP, we have built 12 green infrastructure playgrounds that together capture 8 million gallons of stormwater per year. This helps reduce excess stormwater and sewer overflows that pollute New York City waterways. We also work on a community planting day where we bring together the students and community members to plant in their new schoolyard.
Students take care of their schoolyards, and that includes them getting to dig in the dirt, plant plants.
It feels satisfying to pull a weed out.
We're helping, and it's really fun to plant.
I didn't have a garden, so I couldn't garden anything anymore, and now I get to do this.
These beautifully renovated playgrounds are used by the school during the school day and are open to the public after school and on weekends.
It's very colorful and unique. It's different and creative. It's like a path to the future.
As designers, they have no boundaries. Their eyes are open.
I feel like I did something. I can make it look really, really beautiful.
My name is Joshua. My name is Ivania. My name is Elijah.
Rylan.
Dayla DeLeon.
Zanaya. Dante.
Brianna.
Is Emily.
Alex. My name is Zoe, and I want to be a landscape architect.
Now, come on, who doesn't want to be a landscape architect after watching that video? It's really touching. I also want to give a shout out to Melissa Potter-Ix, who has been instrumental in the process of this project in bringing landscape architecture into the classroom. And Mary Alice Lee, who is the director of the Trust for Public Land program. It's been such a great pleasure working with them as well as working with the students over the years. So, other ways to engage. This might seem like it's a little more of a big project, but there's lots of ways to engage with students on a smaller scale. In 2017, I started a student stewardship program that pairs up landscape architects with schools to do small hands-on projects in their schoolyards and neighborhoods. The first project was a rain garden reinstall at Junior High School 218 in Brooklyn. This project involved 12 students and 10 volunteers, partnered with the school garden club and the Trust for Public Land to clean up and restore plantings in a small school rain garden. The garden had deteriorated due to the lack of maintenance and soil compaction. So we started the day by having a group discussion with the students. We talked to them about landscape architecture and community stewardship and the importance of environmental stewardship. Then we put on gloves, pulled weeds, aerated the soil, planted and mulched the garden. Money was raised for this program through IOBI, which is an online fundraising site, to purchase the plants and garden tools. The newly formed school garden club continued to maintain the garden weekly. It was a lot of fun, and because we had an almost even number of volunteers with students, each student received plenty of one-on-one mentorship with a landscape architect. Through the same collaboration with the Trust for Public Land and Junior High School 218 in Brooklyn, we refreshed the school's raised planters by weeding around existing plants, adding some compost, adding some good native pollinator plants, and mulching. We received some plants through a donation from a local native plant nursery, since it was a school site and it was a not-for-profit team. It was a small project, but it really was a great way to engage the students in their own school garden. Later that year, we joined up with a high school in East Harlem, which is also the home of the Graffiti Hall of Fame. If you're in New York City, in Harlem, east of 106th Street and Park Avenue, it is an amazing site. But anyway, we worked with the high school students to provide some fall tree care for their trees within the playground. It was a rainy day, so it was a very quick project, but we did take a look at all the trees. We aerated the soil, added compost and mulch. We also talked about how to care for trees and took a look at all of the trees' branches to make sure that they were safe and there were no broken branches that a student might get hurt on. Here are some small neighborhood greening projects done in conjunction with the local school and the Friends of Stryker Park, which is a local community group, to build neighborhood pride and beautification along West 97th Street in Manhattan. We did events that were planned around Landscape Architecture Month to assist the local school in doing spring garden cleaning and planting along the entire block in the tree beds. This was a simple and small way to make a big impact locally. We had maintained the tree beds seasonally, and every time we were out working in the tree beds, community members would walk by and comment how beautiful the flowers were, and they would thank us for keeping the street beautiful. Parking Day is a great annual event to include engagement with the community as well as to build awareness of landscape architecture. This past several years, the New York chapter has hosted an incredible collaborative effort to activate parking spaces for community pop-up parks. And last year, it was a 4-block long open street. We have used the Climate Strike event to engage children to create their own posters, talk about climate issues, and engage with them to do their own climate march. They were so thrilled to be doing just what the adults were doing downtown on their own level and with their own signs, and it was great. We also had interviewed several of them to ask them what they will do to help combat climate change. This past year, we included an outdoor classroom, complete with a mask making station, appropriate for the times, chalk art, and a giant participatory mural painting, along with streetscape visioning activities, lots of dance, and lots of music. It was a really fun way to engage locally, and we hope this continues to grow. Well, now it's your turn. Let's talk about the impact that you can make on inspiring the next generation of landscape architects. We all need to increase awareness of landscape architecture. If we all work towards this effort, we can certainly make the impacts we want to inspire a more diverse next generation of landscape architects. Some ways to do this are seek out opportunities to engage with your local communities. Lots of organizations exist, and you can collaborate with them to do some small activities. Many schools would really love the assistance, especially with a lot of online schooling lately. A lot of school gardens are getting neglected. So contact your local school and see if you can offer assistance. Use your creative power to inspire positive change. I think we're all creative people, and we can definitely inspire positive change. And also collaborate with other organizations. I think we all understand that if we all work together, we can have a greater impact. Here's a couple of engagement tips and tools that I have learned over the years through working with students and community groups. One is create activities that are hands-on. Having something physical and actually doing the activity themselves has a far better engagement level. Look at existing projects that are achievable. You know, sometimes baby steps are the way to go. You can't always do a big project. Start small and see where it goes. Short multi-week activities work best, especially when working with school students. Students and staff always have, you know, set schedules. It's very hard to change the schedules or accommodate, but short tasks are usually easier to accommodate. And also students' attention spans tend to decrease the longer a project is. So working on short activities is great to keep the engagement level really high. Also reiterate that this is landscape architecture throughout the project. Keep, you know, driving that message in there, because the more you say it, the more it's going to be remembered. Give them something that they can bring home. Anything like a brochure, a coloring book, activity book, or a physical object is something that will help them remember the activity, and also they can go home and brag to their families. Put the students in the lead. They are the landscape architects. By giving them the empowerment to be the leaders, it also inspires them more to continue with those activities. And finally, having a physical final product. When students can see in 3D something that they created, it's just amazing, and they will always remember that. And their sense of pride just is like through the roof too. So now here's some resources. ASLA really has a whole host of tools for career discovery, and the resources are continuing to grow, especially with more focus on increasing the diversity in our profession. Information on STEM learning, downloadable activity books and brochures, lessons plans, PowerPoints, and video presentations are all available on the ASLA website. There's also links to career discovery programs and organizations. So use these links. They are there for you and for your use. FLAA, or Future Landscape Architects of America, is a nonprofit organization focused on educating K-12 students about the career of landscape architecture. The mission of FLAA is to advocate the student discovery of landscape architecture profession by connecting educators to practitioners and their resources. Their website also has a lot of downloadable lesson plans. The Gowanus Canal Conservancy here in New York City is dedicated to facilitating the development of resilient, vibrant, open space network centered on the Gowanus Canal through activating and empowering community stewardship of the Gowanus watershed. Their Blue Schools design program engages students from 3 local schools to take on a design challenge with the Gowanus Canal Conservancy to develop green infrastructure design concepts for their school campuses. They work in teams and they present their ideas to a jury of design professionals and city agency representatives every year. I had the great honor of being on the jury a couple of years ago. The work that the students do is amazing. They are so smart. We need to get them into the profession right away. They also have a collection of lesson plans and activities that are available to anyone. All you have to do is fill out their survey so they know where their information is going, but it's all on their website. The National Association of Minority Landscape Architects purpose is to increase minority representation at all levels of landscape architecture, practice, and academia. They are helping to raise awareness of minority landscape architects through media exposure, encouraging people of color to become landscape architects, by introducing them to the landscape architecture profession and assisting their career development through mentorship and scholarship. They're a relatively new organization. I highly recommend that you go check them out. And if you have the means, also they would love to have donations for their scholarship fund. Finally, I know I've talked a lot about the Trust for Public Land. They're a really amazing client to be working for. The work that they do is amazing all across the country, really putting public lands at the access of all the public. So go to tpl.org to find out more on the work that they do. There's also lots of resources and videos and ways to get involved locally. Finally, I am really grateful for this opportunity to share with you. I hope this will spark your interest in engaging with your local communities. I have provided a QR code that you can scan with your phone. You can literally do that right now on the screen, but it will take you to a Linktree page I created with these resources as well as my contact information. So I believe we have time for questions. I'd really love to hear from you all. And thank you again. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.